Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Coffee Break Podcast. Our mission here is to share business practices, ideas, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee this morning. I'm Chad Lingefelt from Loc-Doc Security, and today's guest is a 35-year radio veteran, an award-winning radio DJ, a former professional roller skater, and North Carolina Senator Carl Ford. Before we get into the conversation today, Chris, roll that intro for us.
Got so much to say, we got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh yeah.
All right, welcome back, Carl Ford. Thank you very much for taking time out of your super busy schedule to come here today.
Glad to be here today. Can I offer you a new intro? Do you want me to work on that?
if you could to strum that out for us, that'd be nice.
That'd be good.
You know, I think your son helped lay the music down for that.
Probably so.
Yeah, talented bunch of individuals.
Yeah, that's one way of describing it, I guess.
Well, so before we get into the conversation today, one of the things that we do on the Coffee Break Podcast is we do 5 rapid fire questions.
Oh boy.
5 random questions, just the first thing that comes to your mind to answer that.
And this is live, right?
This is live.
Oh boy.
All right. Question number 1. What's the last song that you listened to?
That's a good question. Inspiration, Shouting Time in Heaven. This morning when I left the radio station.
There you go. How many cups of coffee do you drink in a day?
Almost none anymore.
Yeah?
Used to drink a pot a day. Now I don't drink 2 cups a month.
Wow, interesting. Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Both.
At the same time?
Yes.
Anything chocolate?
Yes.
What is your favorite day of the week?
Monday.
Monday, why?
You get up and get going. I like it.
There you go. And then last one is a nickname that your parents used to call you.
I can't say that on the air. My dad, no. I don't. My mom despised and hated nicknames or initials or anything.
Okay, so it was Carl.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm like that. Well, that was a big thing whenever we were naming our kids. Is what is the shortest name that we can give them, because we didn't want to give, we didn't want them to shorten the name. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, see, and I was named after both of my grandfathers. So everybody on my mom's side called me Carl. On my dad's side called me Carl Lindsay.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was.
So that was your nickname, Carl Lindsay. That's what we'll go with.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, cool. So just for a little bit of context, it's pretty exciting. So give us a little bit of introduction of who Carl Ford is now. You're a North Carolina Senator representing Rowan and Stanley County. So tell us a little bit about that, just a kind of a short 30,000-foot overview.
Well, I ran for this. I actually started running over a year ago when we found out that the maps were going to be changed and there was going to be no incumbent in those 2 counties. So I actually went into the Albemarle Christmas Parade over a year ago, just when I knew everything was changing, and started promoting then. And so just got sworn in 2 weeks ago. And you know the old adage, you get sworn in, then you get sworn at. So, and that's true in politics. So, I mean, that's what I'm doing now in North Carolina Senate.
Getting sworn at?
Yes.
Yeah.
That too.
So one of the things I did want to establish early on in this conversation, this is not going to be really a political podcast because, one, I'm not really a big political person, but the reason that I wanted you to be a guest on the podcast is because one of our focuses is about business ideas, strategies, and kind of the overall aspect of that. And one of the things that's really been interesting that I've observed of you is how you got started in your industry, and because really you kind of work in 2 different industries now. You're in public service, and you've been in the radio industry for a many number of years. And so kind of the understanding of how all that got started and kind of your path through that. And I've kind of like slotted this out into 4 different categories that I really wanted to talk about. Radio in the early days, public service round 1, radio in the current stage, and then public service where you are now. And the overall theme of this is talking about perseverance and how when you got started in different areas, how you worked hard from the get-go and didn't wait until you arrived at a certain place to do that. It was just the initial effort. I just wanted to kind of break that down a little bit. Does that work?
That works.
So in the very beginning, back 35 years ago, the story of how you got involved in radio. Bring us up to that.
It'll be 37 years this August.
Okay.
August 2nd. And what happened was I was working in Cannon Mills and working full time. It was a great job, paid very well. But I wanted to get into radio, and no one would hire me. I had no experience.
Sure.
And back then, you had to have experience being on the air, and I had zero. So I went to WRKB in Kannapolis, which that time was AM and FM, and the FM became the Fox here in Charlotte. Still licensed to Kannapolis. But I went in, I said, I want a job, blah, blah, blah. And the manager said, well, you can go in there and watch the guy. He doesn't mind people watching him. You can learn it, but I'm not going to pay you anything.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
So it was a volunteer position.
Yeah, so
internship, as they call it nowadays.
Yeah. No, even interns in Raleigh get paid. So I literally got no pay. But it was only a week. A week went by me watching him. Then the following Monday, Ray Davis was his name. He called in and said, hey, my car's broke down. I can't get there.
Yeah.
And so the guy on the FM was Ed Galloway, who does a lot of voiceovers in the Charlotte Metro. He was on the FM side. I said, hey, can you turn all this stuff on for me? I'll give it a shot. So he did. I did. The manager came in and said, can you work this Saturday?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I can work this Saturday and Sunday afternoon. So that's how I got started. And then I actually started getting a very small paycheck. But that's how I got started.
And the interesting part about that, and what's always stuck out to me about that part of your story is that it was something that you wanted to get into, and you didn't just show up and say, hey, give me a job and just leave. It was you stayed involved until the time was right, and then you kind of worked yourself into that. And that's, I mean, that it's interesting because if you think about it, that storyline has been repeated.
Yes, it repeats itself with me. You know, I lived in a house with dirt floors. No, it's not that bad. I'm only joking.
But seriously, in that aspect, because you started working at WRKB in Kannapolis at the AM radio station, which you now own.
Yes.
That and one other radio station, but at a point through radio in the 90s, you owned 4 radio stations.
It was 4
that covered all of how many different counties? 6, 7 different
covered
counties?
most of the Charlotte Metro. When we had the one in Gastonia, which is now moved to Charlotte, and the one in Monroe.
Yeah. So it was this literally starting as volunteer and filling in for somebody that couldn't show up, to then owning 4 radio stations, widely recognized in the gospel music industry. Lots of awards, lots of involvement there. You were heavily involved in that entire industry for a long time. For a long time, and it was all about providing education. It was all about serving others and helping others get better. Right? I mean, that was kind of the whole theme around the whole concept is, hey, here's what we're doing, and I can help you in the same aspect, and that's how you kind of grew some recognition in that industry.
Right. It was, just working hard there, getting involved in groups, including the Southern Gospel Music Guild and National Quartet Convention and other aspects of the Southern Gospel industry. And then, we would sit, they used to do Station of the Year awards, and just whoever didn't win it last year won it this year.
Yeah.
And then they started doing it where it's a competition. You have to send in a whole portfolio of goodies, including air checks and the whole 9 yards. And we blew them away for a couple of years, and then it got nasty. And this industry is just like all the other industry.
Sure.
And then they had to start giving it to the guy that was screaming the most. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, so that's what. And so, but it's still been good. And then after that, won some other awards, but it's been good.
So along that time period, and I don't remember all these years, so maybe you can help clarify some of this. But during that period, you also ran for public office at that somewhere in there.
I ran. To be honest, I ran 4 times. 3 times for county commission, 1 time for NC House, and obviously I lost every one of those times. But as far as the county commission went, I was getting closer and closer and closer every time, building name recognition, and I was doing really poorly in certain parts of the county, like any part that wasn't the southern part of the county, so mainly Salisbury.
Yeah.
And so then with the help of some friends and me just staying at it, got involved in committees like Department of Social Services Board and then Planning Board, and then working from there.
Again, same process repeated. Volunteer for different boards, get involved, allow people to understand what you can bring to the table, and then you started to get some recognition in that aspect. I was around your process of that when you ran for county commissioner a couple of times, and it was very interesting to watch that because it has been something that I've taken away from being around you is when you went through that, and election night and watching the election results come in, and you lose those primaries, and you walk away from it a little bit dejected of, hey, lost, but it was not a very long period of time after 24, 48 hours, whatever. You're like, all right, this is what I learned from it, and this is what I got to do better next time. And and that's kind of where I go back to this whole story about perseverance is you get involved in something and you put your mind to wanting to accomplish something, and there's failures along the way. Like, there was areas that you just, hey, it looked like it was closed door after closed door after closed door. And you said, okay, I learned from that. This is what we got to do next time. I remember one of the first go rounds on the county commissioner that I was around, there were yard signs, and you're like, well, I didn't have enough yard signs. I got to get more yard signs, but I was able to save the yard signs from this first campaign, get more for the next one, and start over again. And it's always been interesting to watch that from a perspective of how you never gave up on trying to accomplish something.
I remember putting out yard signs, and you and your wife, we did that together one time.
Yep. The old Ford Explorer Sport Track.
Yes, and your wife could not pronounce the name of one of the main roads in Salisbury to save her life, and it's called Ennis Street.
Yep.
But if you ask her to say it, get ready to roll in the floor laughing. She's a very smart lady, but she can't say Ennis, I'll tell you that.
one of the memories of driving through the back roads of Rowan County, putting up yard signs. So that all that happened, and at a point, and this is one of the things that is interesting. So early on, for me, when I was in high school, I was offered an opportunity to come to work with you and work for you at the radio station doing some computer programming. And very similarly, there was one evening that there was going to be a Friday night football game, and the person that was supposed to run the Friday night football game, car broke down, and they weren't able to make it. And so I got the call that said, hey, can you run the Friday night football game, engineer it at the radio station? I was like, never done it before, but I'll give it a shot. And just kind of got thrown into that and had to work through that process and you missed a break. Hey, put this on, do this, do that, and learn through the process, to which over time I got an opportunity to do more and more radio production and learn that whole concept, and was able to work there for, I don't know, was it like 5 or 6 years or something like that, at the radio station full time. And so that's kind of how we got to know each other through that whole process. And then in the current state. So radio in the early days, you got started by volunteering and just kind of filling in where it was needed. Mm-hmm. Public service, you tried, had some failures in that, then started volunteering for different committees. So let's bring it back around to phase 3 of radio in the current era, right? So let's say 2001, 2002 to now. How radio has changed for you?
Oh man, has it ever changed? I mean, we started, we had one little 250 watt station in China Grove and had like 10 or 12 employees working from sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
Now running 2 stations, very soon to be 4, adding the 2 FMs and the internet and everything else, with no full-time employees and just basically 3 family members.
Yeah.
A few other, we've got some guys that work on Sundays.
Sure.
But it's just basically changed from literally spinning records, carts, which are tapes that look like 8-tracks, but they're not, and just queuing up records and working in reel-to-reel tapes, to now everything's on a computer.
Yeah.
It's totally changed, and it's just, I think it's better. Some people don't, but I think it's much better.
Well, it's funny. So I was trying to think back through this in preparation for today's conversation, and it was 98 or 99. I can't remember what year it was when I started working at the radio station part-time, and my entire task was to take CDs and record them into the computer for automation.
That was 99 when we added the computer. Yeah.
And so it was every day come in, and there was a stack of CDs, and you had to play it in real time. You weren't able to rip it and put it in there. It was a real time recording into the computer, and over time that list just started shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And it was one of the things I was thinking about, and I don't remember what year this was, but it would have been somewhere around 2000, something like that. But you said, hey, we've got to figure out how to do internet streaming. Internet streaming of our radio station is going to be the next big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know how well that was received across the entire industry, but it was, okay. And so here's Chad over here trying to figure out how in the world to get a website and how to figure out how to get internet streaming. And now that's the norm. Like, I mean,
it is.
We're doing that right now. What started, in 1999, 2000, before it was really popular, and now anybody can do it anywhere, and it just has kind of changed the game.
Well, we went from people that would listen to us in the stadium at football games with headphones and radios. Now they're listening on their phone in the stadium, which is hilarious to me. It's just, it's changed, but it really hasn't. I mean, just technology.
Yeah.
It just changes everything.
And it gives you a wider spread. I mean, and that was one of the cool things of when that first launched. I mean, that radio station based in Rowan County, China Grove, North Carolina, and Kannapolis, North Carolina, was reaching across the entire world on a regular basis. And that was the coolest thing to be able to see those stats come in. So the radio game has changed. And now, everything is digital. Everything is automated. Mm-hmm. It takes very little resources to do that. So during that process, and again, trying to think through this whole storyline, now that opened up some capacity for you to do some of the other things that you were wanting to do for public service, right? So
without technology, I wouldn't be serving an elected office, because elected office, they tell you, is a part-time job, and it's definitely part-time pay, but it's full-time 7-day-a-week work. I promise you that.
Yeah. No, it's something I can vouch for that. I've seen that over the years. Like, you put in more hours than it's just crazy for that. But because of the industry that you work in, and because of the way technology has changed that game, it's allowed you the opportunity to do it.
Well, and this is funny because this includes you. Now I get to tell people on radio, we got studios in China Grove, Kannapolis, Raleigh, and Charlotte. And we really and truly do, but
there's one little piece of equipment I've talked about before. One little piece of equipment that connects up to this exact setup right here, and it allows us to broadcast.
The funniest thing was my first year in Raleigh. Whoop, see, that's bad. But my first year in Raleigh, my dad calls me and said, "Boy, why won't you come to the door?" I said, "What door?" He said, "Here at the radio station." I said, "Because I'm not there." He said, "I'm listening to you on the radio." I said, "Dad, do you see my car?" No.
Yeah.
I said, "I'm in Raleigh in my office broadcasting." He went, "Oh, well, you got time to talk?" So I talked to him, but that was funny. That was the funniest thing.
Well, it's the technology that exists now, especially in radio. It's crazy with audio. The way that you can send high quality, broadcast quality audio.
Yeah.
From wherever. I mean, you could be on the other side of the world.
Yes.
And sound like you're sitting right here. But it's funny to me, we've had a guest that on this podcast that we just use video on this screen right here, and it sounds like they're sitting right there in the chair, and it with using very little high-end audio quality equipment. So it's pretty cool how that's changed the game. So speak to the current. How, a few years ago, several years ago, you were elected into the North Carolina House of Representatives. Talk about that process, because that was, I mean, well, I guess before that it was
County
commissioner.
Well, and the last I ran in 06 and for county commission, and this will speak to something that's going on now. That night I'd lost by 875 votes, but then the next day it was out in the newspaper that they didn't count an entire precinct. Rockwell, the guy had literally left the ballot box in the trunk of his car and didn't bring them in. That kind of stuff goes on. And then I still lost, but it was like 155 votes or something like that. Made me feel a little better, even though I still lost. So I said, I probably shouldn't run again. And then I had a lady tell me I was an embarrassment to my party, my family, and just running and losing. Wow. But I was getting closer every time. So I said, maybe she's right. And then the chairman of the county commission, Arnold Chamberlain, announced he was not going to run again. Mm-hmm. Well, that meant an open seat where there wouldn't be an incumbent. So I ran, and I ran hard. Went to every county commission meeting for 2 years, sitting in the audience. Didn't miss a one. Went to their retreats, did everything, and kept serving on this planning board and DSS board. And then in 08, which was a fairly big Democratic year, I was top vote getter and got the most votes ever in the history of Rowan County. It was just shy of 30,000 votes. Now, that record has been shattered a couple of times in some presidential years because the population's grown. But that was it. And then
that was
strange.
Don't skip over that. Talk about perseverance. 2 years solid, you attended something that you did not have to attend.
Right.
You participated in something you did not have to participate into for just an opportunity to potentially get votes to participate in something that you've been running for and trying for at that point, what, 10, 15 years?
At least, yeah.
That's perseverance, right? And
yeah.
And somebody tells you you're an embarrassment to your party. That's kind of hardcore.
Yeah.
Right? But all right, so then you win. You shatter the record at that point. Highest vote getter. You get into the county commission. Lots of things change. Then Carl Ford shows up on the scene and everything goes.
Yeah, I get sworn in that night. I think it was December 1st or 2nd, whatever. I got sworn in, and 5 minutes later I was chairman. So all I can tell you is there was some politics at play there. It was a good thing I had attended meetings, because I'm getting sworn in 1 minute, and the next minute they hand me a gavel, and I have to run the meeting.
Do you still have that gavel?
Yeah, I still got it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I've been wanting to get a gavel so bad.
You can get them online fairly cheap. Or I could sell you mine autographed for about $10,000. No, I'm only joking. But yeah, but that was a strange thing. Now you talk, I was sweating bullets, and I had to watch that meeting online to remember what happened, because I was scared to death. I didn't know what happened that first night.
Yeah, that's fun.
Weird.
I sat on a board. It's a regional council for some industry stuff, and the first meeting that I attended after I got put on the board, they were putting new officers in, and they said, we need somebody to be the secretary. And I said, what does the secretary do? And they said, motion second. And I was like, whoa. So I can understand.
Yeah, you got thrown right into it. There you go. Well, then in 2012, what happened was I was probably going to run for county commission again. And one of my friends likes to joke with me. He's commissioner now, Craig Pierce. He said, I'm going to run. And you don't want me to beat you, do you? So he was joking. And he said, you need to run for North Carolina House. Well, I wasn't going to run against any of the incumbents. They were doing a good job.
Sure.
But then Fred Steen said, I'm running for Congress. So, boom, that door was open.
Yeah.
Got into a primary and won the primary and won it big, worked hard at that. Then that fall, my Democratic opponent withdrew from the race. There was a few problems there, and won. And then I spent the rest of those 6 years in the North Carolina House running unopposed. And then what happened in 20...
just a fierce candidate that nobody even wants to contest.
Hopefully. Then in 2017, we were sued. The Republicans were sued by the Democrats, saying that the maps are gerrymandered, they're not fair, need to redraw the maps. So we redrew the maps. And so that meant new seats. Well, things started to change in July of that year, and Andrew Brock, the senator, one of the senators for Rowan, had 2 at that time, he resigned. Now, he got him a cushy government job, but he resigned. And then they had to appoint someone to that seat. Well, there was a man, a multimillionaire from Rowan, that was trying to get in that seat. You have to get appointed by the Republican Executive Committee. He didn't get it. Very angry, very shocking.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody got it from Davie County, which was part of that current district. So they redrew the district for Rowan and Stanley, which meant there was no incumbent.
Gotcha.
So I filed to run for that seat. Now, you can't tell me that wasn't God doing all that.
Yeah.
It just laid it all out. Because when Fred Steen said, I'm running for Congress, boom, there it was.
Opened it up, yeah.
Arnold Chamberlain didn't run for county commission. Boom, there, this one, no incumbent, and right in. And this was an interesting year because I had a pretty strong opponent in the primary, and then a good, friendly, good guy in the fall, and there you go.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting ride for sure.
So again, to kind of bring that whole perseverance theme back, started running for county commission many years ago. Had many failures along that point. You get in as county commission after hard work and perseverance. House of Representatives, North Carolina House of Representatives, and now North Carolina Senate seat. So that's a pretty big jump in a very short amount of time. When you look at it from an overall picture, right? Because when was your first swear in for the county commission?
December of 2008.
2008. So in 10 years,
yeah,
you moved from county commissioner to North Carolina senator, but there was a span there of what, 20 years that you were working to get there. Probably longer than that.
Yeah, probably so, because I've been involved in the party for years and then, sort of in and out for a little while before I got heavily involved again in the mid-90s. So from there.
Well, it's one of the storylines that I like to talk about a lot when it comes to perseverance is a lot of people focus on the now. Hey, Carl just ran for North Carolina senator last year, and boom, he's there. Must be nice. But they fail to see 20 years prior and through all that. So with that in mind, what are some lessons that you've learned along the way through your radio career, through politics, through public service that you've learned, some takeaways that you've gotten from that when it comes to perseverance, goal setting, working towards trying to achieve something?
First thing I found out is I'm a slow learner. So because those years of failing, I went, what am I? And every time I would learn a lesson.
Yep.
What I didn't do enough of this. I did too much of this. I should have done more of that. And you could go into hours of details on that, which obviously we won't do, but you just learn how to do it better, do it right, and just keep going, never give up. And the other thing was actually from 2004 to 2008, when there were seats available every 2 years, basically never stopped running, basically kept my name out there.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, in politics, it's about 90% name recognition.
Yeah.
And it's because people are going to vote for who they know, the name they've heard, and then obviously they look at R's and D's in the fall. But so you just learn to keep going and to do things better. And I did learn a lot from the mistakes. From things as simple as direct mail to cards you were handing out what they should and shouldn't say to in 2006, I wanted to get out there and tell everybody this is what I believe and this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. Bum, bum, bum. And most people, they didn't care, which was odd.
Yeah.
So in 2008, I went, hey, my name's Carl Ford, vote for me. If they ask a question, I would answer them.
Gotcha.
I always would tell people what I thought or what I believed. It didn't matter the audience.
Yeah.
Whether I was at the NAACP meeting or the Tea Party meeting, I told them the same thing.
Yeah.
This is what I believe. But other than that, I was just promoting Carl Ford. I'm running for office. Vote for me. So that was the big change from 2006 to 2008. I still believed the same thing.
Yeah.
Still was going to vote the same way. It's just that I wasn't trying to shove it down everybody's throat.
So you were simplifying your message.
Yes.
Huh.
And it worked.
Yeah. Marketing 101.
Yes.
Very interesting. So, and to be aware of time, we'll start wrapping things up here. But a couple of the things on that are very interesting, because that's kind of what we're all about here, is always improving, right? So, learning from your mistakes, trying to get better at that. It's a lot of really really interesting information that I was able to observe while I was working with you, and it's some of the things, and Chris and I talk about it frequently. There are still things that I learned by watching the way that you ran your business and the way that you interacted with your customers that we employ here. Some of the things that we that I learned from that process we have applied in areas of our business here, and it's because it's a state of always learning from others, good, bad, indifferent. One of the big things is promotional material. Put your put your logo on everything and get it in people's hands, because that's how they're going to remember you. And that's just something very simple, But it was something that I picked up from walking into the radio station, and T-shirts and pins and coffee cups and whatever you could think of had a logo on it, and that's how you were promoting the brand of that radio station.
You got to do that, and I get on to some of the guys, some of my friends I run with together in the counties and things, and they'll do radio ads, and they want me to help them. Well, I try to help them, and they don't listen. See, I'll do a 30-second ad and say my name 5 or 6 times. Yeah. It's radio.
Yeah.
Then a friend of mine will do a 60-second ad and say his name twice. Well, he keeps saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now you say, this is Carl Ford, and Carl Ford, you got to say it's radio.
Speak of yourself in the third person, because they can't see your face.
It's radio.
Yeah.
And so you learn those things about promoting, and you learn about customers, in that no two customers are alike. I've got customers, if I don't talk to them a couple of times a week, they're upset. And I've got customers, if I talk to them twice a year, what's wrong? What do you need?
Yeah.
What's going on? You just don't bother them.
Yeah.
You just keep sending them the bill. I mean, customers are different. They really are.
That is no truer statement has ever been told. No, it's very relevant. Here's an interesting question: how does it feel to have your own Wikipedia entry?
That's weird, because that stuff. Somebody asked me. I'll never forget somebody asking me a few years ago, "Have you ever Googled yourself?" I said, "What?" and so I did, and I went, "Oh boy!" And then I found out there were a bunch of Carl Fords too. There's some guy that's an NFL player.
Yep.
That is not me.
Yeah.
Because first of all, that would mean I'm athletic, and second of all, I probably have some money.
Yeah.
So neither one of those things. But it's kind of weird when you pull up and then you'll see the most read stories, and some of them are good, some of them are not so good.
Yeah.
So
that's part of when you put yourself out there.
Yes.
Yeah. Open yourself up for criticism. So with all the things that we've talked about, from being consistent, perseverance, and all those things, what's the reason for that? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I believe you don't give up. But it was sort of like in my family. I saw my mom, my dad both never gave up on things. My dad could save money like you wouldn't believe. My dad would say, "Well, I've gotten a little overweight," so he'd cut out. What he would tell me, I cut out Coca-Colas and Pepsis for a month and lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And walk more at work. I saw my mom and her whole family. They would go through tough times. They got a history book, and you can read about the family, poor dirt farmers in Rowan County, but how they persevered, never gave up, and took advantage of everything that they could, and used it to the fullest. So you're raised that way, and you're raised. My dad was. The whole time my dad worked for Cannon Mills, I don't think he missed but 3 days of work in 40, 50 years, whatever it was. He just didn't miss work.
Yeah.
Mom didn't. We didn't miss school. We went to school sick. I mean, out of 12 years of school, 1st through 12th grade, obviously, maybe a little more. But I didn't miss probably 3 or 4 days of school in that time. You just
didn't do it.
You went. That's what you did. And so I was raised like that.
How many years have you been getting? You get up at 4 o'clock every morning?
3 o'clock, and when I'm in Raleigh.
3 o'clock.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Long as I can remember, since somewhere in the mid 80s. Because when I started in radio, I didn't get up till about 5, and then things changed where there was programming before that.
Yeah.
So I'd have to get up at 4 in order to get there. So, and in Raleigh, got even more, because I either got to drag my clothes over there or get in a suit and tie and go to work. So there's a little more prep work.
Yeah.
I might have to actually shave before I go to work. So it's
funny that Carl Ford is, by the time most of us show up to work, you've already put in and gotten more things accomplished. That is one of the things that I've taken away from watching you and being around you is there is so much productivity that can happen in those early morning hours. There's not a lot of interruptions. You kind of to yourself and you get so many things done.
That's right.
The downside of it is your eating schedule is just completely whacked.
It's crazy. And in Raleigh, your eating schedule is not your own. And so that's part of I'm gonna blame that. Part of the reason I'm fat is because your schedule gets messed up, and here's some cookie and cake, and here's some and if you eat in the cafeteria, which was the only place we can eat sometimes, you just got a 30-minute break.
Yeah,
you got to go right back upstairs, and you walk by. They're smart. It's at eye level, all the cakes and pies, and they home make them right there. Oh, because I don't eat dessert. I can go with you to a restaurant for a year. I won't order a dessert, but when it's sitting right in front of me, my tongue goes, get that.
Yeah.
So eating schedule is crazy because most of the time I'm eating breakfast at 4:30.
Yep.
I'm eating lunch at 10 o'clock, and I want supper by 4 or 5 o'clock at the latest.
I joke with people all the time. When I worked at the radio station with Carl, my shift was like noon to 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so by the time I showed up, you'd already had breakfast and lunch.
Yep.
And then about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was time for dinner, and I just had lunch. So I consumed about 6 meals a day just and then I would go home, and Jessica would want to have dinner, and I was like, well, I mean,
yeah,
got to eat again.
Nothing wrong with a midnight snack. My midnight snack happens at 8 o'clock, and so because I really need to go to bed by 8 or 8:30.
Yeah,
really need.
Oh
to.
Yeah, you have to.
Doesn't always happen, but
well, Carl, I appreciate you coming in and taking time. I know you've got a lot of stuff going on, and coming down here today was awesome. I respect a lot of the things that you've brought to the table, and it's been really cool to be able to see your perseverance and your drive over the past 20 years, just that I've been around, and even back even before that. So it's really cool, and I respect that from you, and really excited to see kind of what the future looks like for you in your public service career, because you never know what's going to happen next with the excitement that's happened over the last 10 years.
You never know. And I couldn't make it, obviously, without my wife, my children, people like you that still help me quite a bit. And most of all, God. There's just no way. God's been in control of everything, and I know that. I couldn't do it without him for sure. But right behind God, though, has got to be my wife, because, man, trust me, she does not get up at 4 o'clock. She stays up because she's looking after grandchildren and stuff. I can't do that.
Yeah.
See, everybody's got a talent. Mine isn't looking after grandchildren. I love them, but not looking at them.
You like to aggravate them.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Cool. Well, hopefully our listeners and our viewers have gotten something out of this today, from a level of perseverance and understanding that when you want to work towards something, you have to put in the work, and put in the work before it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what, if I were to sum up Carl Ford as a whole, it's not afraid to put in the work, and understanding that you have to put in work before it's time. And that's really kind of the takeaway of one of the life lessons that I've learned from you. And so it's really cool to see that. So as we do every week, our goal here is to bring practical, valuable content for our listeners and for our audience. And I believe we did that today. If today is your first time that you're listening or watching us on Facebook, or if you're listening on our podcast, we ask you to subscribe. We do this every Tuesday. Every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. we do a live recording of our podcast, and then it's available on all the podcast networks: iTunes, Stitcher, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, all of those that are out there. You can listen to it in the audio version, or you can watch the video on Facebook or on YouTube. More information is available at locdoc.net/podcast. Carl, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
You can email carl@forwardbroadcasting.com. And if it's government related, carl.ford@ncleg.net, which is basically North Carolina legislature. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, good. Thank you very much for being here today. And next week, next Tuesday, we'll have another episode right here from the Coffee Break Studio. So we'll see you then. To learn more about the topics discussed today and to connect with us online to hear all of the episodes available, visit Loc-Doc.net/podcast.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
The Coffee Break Podcast is brought to you by Loc-Doc Security. We'd love to connect with you online on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Just search LOCDOCINC.